quickly, without boring you to death, background in a nutshell. I've been at Thomson Reuters for going on 5 years. I joined from Credit Suisse in Hong Kong. I come from 20 plus years in investment banking, primarily focused on talent between New York, London, and Hong Kong. So this is kind of a new venture to build out the diversity function and the CSR and sustainability function as well. Glad to be here. Dawn is going to talk in a moment about herself, and a couple of our other team members are seated over there from Thomson Reuters who are all working in this space and responsible for a lot of the work that we're going to talk about today. So Dawn?
Great, thanks. Is my mic on? Dawn Emling, I've been with Thomson Reuters about 8 months now. I actually started with USAID. I think I've heard some of you in the audience are from USAID, doing democracy and human rights about 20 years ago. Fast forward, I did some work with Credit Suisse in Hong Kong and in London on their sustainability and corporate philanthropy, so that earlier conversation was right up my alley. And then recently joined Patsy's team, and delighted to be here and give you a little bit of a practical sense about an initiative we're just launching.
Perfect. Okay, so you have the, excellent. So one thing that we just wanted to start off with is that a lot of people don't know a lot about what Thomson Reuters actually does. People think about our news organization, which is obviously huge, or the aspect of the media company that we are. But at the end of the day, we're much broader than that. I mentioned that earlier today at another session. We are a company that provides data analytics and information management to professional services firms around the globe. We're 55,000 different employees in 100 countries and 590 cities. And I tell you that because a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is focused on leveraging what we do as an organization, providing that data, that analysis, and those answers to these professional services firms. And what we've tried to do, and this was mentioned on the earlier panel as well, is to make sure that the work that we are doing across all three verticals, as we call them, are fully integrated into the business. So we know this is about the brand, but we know it's about the business and the strategy and really impacting the bottom line. So what we're going to talk to you about today is our strategy and how we do that, but also some very specific initiatives and how they are linked back to innovation, productivity, and profitability. Just as sort of a high-level view, we thought we'd share this slide with you, again, to reiterate the point about what Thomson Reuters actually does and the variety of businesses that we operate in. You'll see here it's all professional services firms. And again, we're speaking on a global basis today. Everything that we talk about from the company perspective and our team's perspective is fully global. These are our clients that we deal with on the financial risk side: trading, investors, governance, risk, and compliance. We'll talk a little bit about risk today as part of our social impact initiative as well. Law firms, and then tax and accounting firms as well. On the bottom, you'll see we have our global growth organization, which is heavily focused on developing markets, which I think many people in this room know. That's where a lot of these topics are particularly hot at the moment. We're doing a lot of work in those markets. Our news organization, and then technology is highlighted here, because if you think about the nature of our business, about 50% of our employees have some sort of technological background. So there's a heavy technology component to the work that we do as well. And I tell you that again, just to kind of reiterate the breadth of our business, which really provides an excellent platform for sustainability and diversity in terms of background and experience as well. So that's who we are. What happened, as I mentioned, is that about 2.5 years ago, due to a variety of different factors that I think everybody in this room is well aware of, both internally and externally, from the external perspective, whether we're talking about talent that we wish to acquire, the millennials in particular, with the wealth transfer that's taking place over the next couple decades, looking at those factors, regulators, governments, investors in particular, and certainly our clients and customers, the company made the decision to bring these three areas together because we thought this is how we're going to drive thought leadership, drive change, and develop business across the organization. So when given this challenge, and just by way of background and full disclosure, when I took on the role to include sustainability and CSR, I had no background in either of those areas. So the good news is I like to build teams and get people excited about things and go out and talk about it. So thankfully we've got people like Dawn and Laura and others on the team to help drive this strategy. But we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how can you actually weave those three areas together in a meaningful way for the business and for our people and for ourselves in terms of getting things done. And we're big one-pagers at our company. We don't believe in these 50-page slide decks. Nobody pays attention to them. I can't even get through them myself with my attention span. So this is our one-page strategy document. And this is how we integrate the three, which is basically we talk about empowering sustainable growth through the diversity of our people, our markets, and our world. And when we talk about our people, we're talking about three things primarily. Number one is about building an inclusive workplace. So this is really where the diversity and the inclusion piece meet each other. And this is really about employee engagement, both internally and externally in terms of talent that we want to bring into the organization. Because our goal, as I mentioned in an earlier session, is very much about just casting the widest net to get the best people around the table with the most different perspectives. And so when we think about diversity, we're talking about diversity of thought, style, experience, and approach more than anything else. Although, of course, we have a heavy focus on diverse representation all across the board. We're also looking at programming and policies and initiatives supporting that diverse talent to make sure that we're really building a culture that allows people to bring their full selves to work. I'm kind of getting sick of that expression, to be honest. I'm sure many of you are too. But at the end of the day, that's really what we're trying to do, is that people can come to work, feel comfortable in who they are, and therefore be able to contribute at the highest level, right? So it's really creating that environment. And in that area, we have tons of initiatives in place, all across the board that run from building that culture through education and accountability, all the way through to policies and leadership development programs, all the way through to engagement with our business resource groups and business development as well. Then if you think about our markets, so we're talking here about our clients or our customers. And one of the things that's near and dear to my heart, to our team's heart, and to our organization's heart as well, is the work that we do, although we're focusing on building it internally and enhancing employee engagement, we're also heavily focused, and probably about 50% of our time is actually spent with our clients, with our customers, at conferences, driving thought leadership, raising awareness of these issues and these topics that not all people have a full or consistent understanding of, as I know everybody in this room clearly knows, particularly sustainability being one example. So we spend a lot of time in business development. And that takes a variety of different forms, ranging from interviews with our clients who are driving change in any of these areas, all the way through to co-hosting events, all the way through to thought leadership and research reports, as well as product development. So I'm going to give you an example of a key product that we just launched a couple weeks ago that we're very excited about, by the way. We're pretty much excited about all that we're doing, but this is particularly exciting. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we wish to do as a function, and have been asked to do as well, is to develop products that leverage our core competence as an organization. So given we are a data company, we have a database, I know many of you are familiar with it, called Asset4, which tracks environmental, social, and governance data on 5,000 companies across the globe, all industries, by the way. And so what we did is we work with our financial and risk department, the group that runs the Asset4 database, and we identified 24 variables under 4 pillars that identify effective, diverse, and inclusive companies. And so narrowing down those variables, we released an index just 2 weeks ago. I don't know if anybody has seen it in the press. Has anybody seen it? It's out there. We should, as a follow-up to the conference, by the way, we should send it out to everybody, if that makes sense. Yeah.
All CRA members will get that.
Perfect. Excellent, excellent. Well said. But it's really cool because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is, again, get that data out there so companies can see where they're doing well, where they need to do better. Ultimately, we want to be advising companies in this space. And there's 2 ways our customers and our partners, frankly, can access this data. One is by having access to the database called Icon, which is our desktop platform that many financial professionals have access to. It's a live data feed. People who have access to that can play around with the data on a regular basis. For those who do not, we, on a quarterly basis, and as we did a couple weeks ago, we'll do a press release of the top 100 companies. So of those 5,000 companies, who are the top 100 companies that are doing best in this space and why? What is their rating per category? And again, as I said earlier, how can they actually start to improve those scores over time? So I'll tell you that of the top 100, thankfully we're in the top 100. It'd be really embarrassing if we were 4,999 and we launched this index. But we're number 57. And I tell you that because, being a news organization and a company that's driven by trust principles, one of our goals as well was to ensure that the data we're providing is objective. So we're not number 1. We're not promoting ourselves. We're 57. We've got some work to do. We think we're doing well, but we've got more work to do, like most of us do. So that's just an example of a major product launch for us. I'd love for you guys to take a look at it. We welcome any feedback. It's meant not only to help those companies understand how well they're doing, but also to help investors make decisions around the companies that they invest in. And in fact, we have a number of different investors, asset owners, fund managers who work with us on the design of this, who are now, as we speak, making decisions based on that. So it's exciting. So we're excited. Hopefully you're excited, and hopefully it'll have an impact on this community moving forward. So continuing on our markets piece, external recognition we put here, it's not that our ultimate aim is to win awards, but we all know that given that CSR and sustainability are very important to brand and talent and to customers and investors, that we do want to make sure that we are working towards some very specific goals around external recognition and certain awards. And so they're very thankful, actually. We've been able to receive a number of different awards over the past couple years across all 3 verticals. And then finally, if we think about our world, this is the third component of our strategy, and this is really the way we describe it, our relationship with our environment, so our sustainability activities, both internally and externally. So internally, we have a number of different programs and campaigns out there to educate and involve our employees, like our green teams, for example, in helping people understand how they can contribute to sustainability and to the environment. But also externally, we do a lot of thought leadership and research reports on our sustainability.com site, which if you haven't seen it, we can also send that out there. And that takes the form of articles and interviews and a variety of different angles. In fact, we're going to be launching on Monday, so lots of launches going on right now. The team's been pretty busy, hence the dark circles under the eyes here, I think. But we're launching a whole effort around women at leadership and sustainability and the linkage between the two. And so that's going to come out on Monday, actually. And that, again, as I said, is a whole variety of interviews and articles and research all about these topics on a global scale. So I hope you'll have the opportunity to take a look at that as well. And then finally, community investment, which is really CSR. We've sort of renamed it in our organization, community investment. I'm sure others have as well. Laura Giacchino, who's sitting over there, heads that up for our team and has done a phenomenal job. And that's really our relationship with the communities that we operate in. So someone asked me earlier today, how global is your strategy versus regional? We do have a global coordinated effort, which was the goal of creating this function that's aligned with our company goals on an enterprise-wide level. But we're conscious of the fact that all of these issues, from diversity to sustainability, vary very much depending on the region or the country that they're in. So we tend to operate about 75 to 80% global, 20 to 25% regional and country specific within a whole governance model that we have in place that we won't go into detail today, but happy to share with you at another time. And so our goal, and I saw this mentioned on the panel earlier as part of this effort as well, is to increase the volunteering of our employees. Every employee has access to 2 days of volunteering a year. We're trying to make that as simple and easy as possible. And thanks to Laura and others, make sure that we're linking those organizations to our company strategy, and the organizations that we partner with are aligned to our values and our goals with the aim to really bring up skills-based volunteering. So that, in a nutshell, is the sort of helicopter view of our overarching strategy across corporate responsibility, sustainability, and diversity. So what we're going to do next, in the interest of moving forward, is talk about a very specific initiative that Dawn has been leading for us, which I think just in short order is particularly interesting because, as I alluded to earlier, I'll just say it again, we feel very strongly as a function that this is a business exercise. I mean, we know these are topics that we all are passionate about personally and professionally. They're the right thing to do. But we also feel strongly that they are business imperatives. And so part of our goals as a team and as an organization is to make sure that we're constantly talking about the business case. And not only doing that, but how do we also move beyond the initiatives that our team drives to leverage, again, the products that our organization provides. So as Dawn walks you through the social impact initiative, what you'll see is that we're now moving beyond our remit and looking across all of Thomson Reuters and all of the products that we provide, and basically trying to assign social value to those products so that we can tell a joined-up narrative, both from a business perspective and also from an employee perspective. So with that, Dawn, I'm going to stop talking and pass the floor over to you.
Thanks, Patsy. This is 3 months in the design, and this is actually the first time that this has been external. It's gone through significant internal meetings and socialization. So Ali, we're proud to launch it externally here at the conference. This is definitely a team effort. This has been led by myself and 2 colleagues on the team. So we're delighted to share this with you today in the spirit of collaboration. It's not fully baked. It's getting there, but I know a lot of people are starting to deal with SDGs and measuring social impact, so I thought we'd walk you through that today from a very practical perspective. Let's see if I can get, okay. So top 2 lines, we, as Patsy was saying, a data analytics and information company. We deliver values-based revenue generation through our products and services. So what does that mean when we try to start to nail down the social value of our products? On the one side, we thought smart data and human expertise, products that have a financial return. We are actually not talking about the philanthropy or the employee engagement when we're speaking about this initiative. We're actually talking about the products. And then on the second half is those products that have a measurable social impact, and we define that as a positive impact on ESG issues. We knew when we spent a long time in the design phase that the measurable social impact was going to come back to us, and it is, and we're happy to take on the challenge. I'll walk you through that in a second. This is a description when we socialize this internally. I thought this might help those of you that are going through similar processes. The purpose of the initiative is to identify and champion products that have social impact, to enhance the brand, to connect customers to our products, to embed CR&I, which is what we call CSR, into sustainable business models, to partner strategically with all of our partners that our CR&I team does keep in touch with on a very regular basis, and I'll jump down to that circle diagram. NGOs, academic, the UN Global Compact, I mean, all of you know these folks. We stay in touch with them regularly, so we're bringing that to the business teams. And then to engage our employees clearly on the skills-based, we're gearing up towards that in phase 2 in 2017. The little block orange is to explain to those internally why we as a team could serve as the hub across the 55,000 employees and across the 3 business units. I'm going to give you a very quick, and happy to do some questions after, the steps it took to get us here. Very practical. We spent a lot of time on brainstorming. We talked about social innovation. We talked about disruption. We talked about incubators. We talked about innovation labs. We ended up coming back to social impact. We intrinsically believe our products, not all of them, but some of them, have social value, and we thought we would highlight that rather than the innovation and the disruption that is very trendy and part of our company as the technology, but that's not where we saw ourselves in this initiative. Number 2, we started mapping. We have over 500 products. Don't ask me the exact number. I'm only 8 months on the job. I don't know. But we started mapping them and identifying those products we felt might have a social value and something we could measure. And then we went to the business teams and we said, you have this ESG data that goes across the ICON platform that investors can use. We intrinsically know there's social value in that. Are you happy for us to include that in this initiative and to work with you on measuring and the metrics? And 9 out of 9.5 folks that we met with, I would say 30 or 40 product teams were thrilled. They said, we know this, we know our product does this, we know it's part of what we do. We haven't ever sat down and put the brains on it and tried to measure it, so yes, we're in. Keep us involved in the initiative. We then took this list, about 20. We went to branding and marketing. It's very critical to talk to the comms people. We've talked about this earlier today, particularly around reputational risk. You don't want to create cynicism around what you're doing. You want to have legitimate social impact. So we spent a lot of time with branding and marketing to make sure they were comfortable with it. And then we are very pleased with the SDGs. We have recently signed on to the UN Global Compact. When we did this exercise, we realized, wow, these SDGs completely fit against what we're trying to do. So we're fans, we're converts. We did that with what we were looking at and the products we were looking at, and you'll see, we'll show you in the next slide a sample of what we ended up doing. We got some interesting criticism in that we were being too product focused. So if we had 20 products that we identified, we were going to try to measure the impacts of those products. We actually got pushback and said, as a corporate, as an enterprise, we've got news, we've got data, we've got information. This is facilitating the economy. This is facilitating money moving to markets. You need to think bigger, which is not actually what we thought we would get. And so we actually now are pulling out by the SDGs. So number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, is actually the most relevant to our industry and to our company. And you'll see we're trying to grab everything that we know of that fits against SDG 16. And that's probably where we're going to go. I think we have 8 SDGs now that are very clear winners for Thomson Reuters. And I will end that brief. Oh, I lost my slide. We had a big question mark. Because now we're on measuring impact. And we knew that was coming as a team. We're prepared for that. And we have to work with the product teams to what they're comfortable and how we measure the impact. How do you measure the social value of a news company? To Elliot's earlier point, particularly one that believes in trust and objectivity in the face of what's happening out in the real world. So that's where our team is now. We're excited about the future and about this initiative, and we definitely see it having a long shelf life. So thanks for that. We're happy to share the slides.
And so I think in short order, if you think about kind of the broader strategy and you think about the social impact initiative and the index and a lot of the products that we mentioned today, it's really threefold in purpose. It's number one about engaging our employees on a global scale. It's number two about driving thought leadership and change. And we strongly believe in the collective. I think, given the nature of our business, we partner with, as I mentioned earlier, our customers and other organizations on a regular basis, as I said, spending 50% of our time externally. And the third piece is really business development. And that's really where you start to see that around the social impact initiative, where there really is an impact on the bottom line and profitability. And so that's where we've seen a lot of, to Don's point, heavy engagement from 9.5 to be exact of our 10 stakeholders on average. But it has really been exciting, if I may add to that, before we take questions, in just the sense that so many of these business people who've been running these products, they might be salespeople, they might be product developers, or whatever the case may be, but they get so excited about this as well because it's bringing the products to the fore, right? It's taking them out of the silos, and it's bringing them up to the surface and saying, look, this is how we want to represent our company as a whole. So I'm quite convinced that that's a lot of the reason, in addition to the business value, that these people have come on board so quickly. When I say these people, I mean our CEO, our executive board members, I mean all the leaders within our organization. So it's pretty exciting to see that play out in real time, if you will. So I think with that, as Don said, we'll stop here and see what questions we have.
Lots of hands.
Yeah, excellent.
My name is Lorraine Harrison. I'm with New York Academy of Sciences. We actually have a conference that we're doing on enabling the SDGs through science and technology. And one thing I wanted to know is, we think there's potential in educating R&D organizations to the SDGs so they actually innovate to address that. Rather, it sounds like what you're doing is measuring how the products, for example, impact the SDGs, but do you think there's opportunities to do the reverse and really motivate people in R&D to address these challenges? And that's what we're very interested in trying to see if we can do.
Yeah, it's a good question. We, as a company, are very engaged in ESG data on how folks are measuring and looking at governance and ESG performance of companies. I believe, I'm going to say that personally because I don't know as a corporate that we're ready to say this yet. I believe, and I think the team believes, the SDGs may be the next lens in terms of what data is collected from the financial sector. And that, we think, is a huge lever to, once the investors are looking at companies and how they're affecting SDGs, that I believe in the same way that the ESG data is increasing innovation and change.
We've heard in an earlier from series that the SDGs are not big on the corporate picture today. So there's an interesting difference of opinion here. Speaking from somebody who's very involved with the UN in achievement of SDGs and in involving civil society and of course the private sector in SDG monitoring, progress, and of course achievement at the end, how do you see from where you are the engagement of the private sector in general, not just in the US, in SDG achievement? Thank you.
Yeah. I didn't hear the earlier statement from Ceres. Did they say SDGs were not critical to corporates?
They were talking about board, how to,
the board.
corporate boards, and they were saying basically they didn't see it.
Yeah, I'll refer, if I can, back to the ESG data. I think even a year ago, a lot of investors, and including stockbrokers, would not have thought ESG was a big differentiator. It is now, and I think a lot of people acknowledge that, and we're looking for the next alpha, and I do believe it is the SDGs. I think we also see a lot of our clients, and because we're in this space as a news organization, and sustainability.thomsonreuters.com has a lot of thought leadership on this space. BT has come out on SDGs, Unilever is on SDGs. The movers in this space are picking it up as a framework. I for sure see it as the future. And that's from someone who wasn't totally a believer last year. I believe it now.
Agreed.
Thank you, that was great. And Patsy, thank you for being on mine earlier today. I'm a little puzzled on what it is you're struggling to measure, because to me, I'm also in the information space, obviously, and I've worked with management consulting firms as well, so I get the whole, we're giving out knowledge, right? But there seems to me to be a whole bunch of different resources you can aggregate to measure these things. I mean, there's SASB, there's Ceres has their criteria, you have your data for, et cetera. I mean, I can list them, the diversity stuff, the inclusion stuff. I mean, if you went through each of those, we could name a host of sources that could give you that if you aggregated them together. So I'm a little confused, to be candid, about what it is you're struggling to measure specifically to determine impact, because I would think that globally there are many different sources you could pull from to take that data from and then maybe use it internally as well.
I think I'm going to say one top line statement on that and then pass it over to Dawn as a driver of this important initiative. I mean, I don't think that we're, it's a great question, by the way, it's very fair, because particularly since the next slide was going to be a question mark. But, you know, it's not so much, in my view, that we're struggling with how you measure them. I think it's more a matter of packaging them in a way that's digestible, because to your point, there's so many different angles that we can take, and this is all global, as we said, and I think we see many different opportunities externally and internally from a KPI perspective, because we're very KPI driven. I think the issue at this point is how do we, again, package that in a digestible way that is meaningful to the business. Would you agree, Tom?
I would, and I actually have a good example. We have a software platform that helps with land titling, and it was used by the city of Cape Town, the government, to increase land titling in the townships, and it decreased the time it took for someone to claim their land from 20 days to 3 days. That is a metric Thomson Reuters and the product team is happy to say. We would like, the CR&I team would like to say that increases a person's ability to own other things and to have assets and to get loans, and that's a social value. We are getting there on putting a metric on it, but there's work to be done, to Patsy's point, about how we package that and what the company is comfortable using as a metric. I mean, metrics are tough things. Once you go out publicly with it, you're kind of beholden to it. So,
Especially when you're a publicly traded company.
yeah,
Exactly.
but we're excited about the challenge. I mean, it's a rich man's problem to have.
Just as a quick follow-up, can you use the GDPs and GNP data and the internal to that country economic indicators to help, and look at the timing of when that started?
I don't know if
to
we
help
could
you
claim
with that?
causation, let alone correlation on that level. I mean, that's just a really big stretch that are, I mean.
So you want direct causation?
We want something we're comfortable putting our hands around. And there's cynicism in the world, to Elliot's point earlier. We don't want to come out saying we can do all these great things. And we want to measure it against the SDGs. I mean, the SDGs wants measurements. They want metrics. So we want to be able to do that. It's a good problem.
We can talk about that.
Patsy, thank you
Thanks.
so very much.
Thank you.